Hablemos de creatividad y de cómo darle salida durante una crisis. Permitidme que cambie al inglés para presentar a nuestra siguiente invitada. Our next speaker is fascinated by literature, history, and the arts, but perhaps unusually also has a passion for technology. She is dedicated to the mix between these two, often disparate worlds. She has faced numerous challenges in her personal and professional life and talks openly about how hard that experience can be. If there's anyone who knows about finding opportunities in moments of crisis, it's her. So let's welcome the creative director for Google Creative Lab in Sydney, Uglow. Welcome, T. How are you?
Hi.
Lovely to see you.
Thank
you so much
for
being with us. It's a fantastic day with you. So whenever you're ready, T, we're looking forward to listening to you. All yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. It is a great honor to be here. It's always slightly embarrassing when you are a keynote speaker and you think, what you wonder what you could possibly have done for people to want to listen to you. And it has been really interesting talking to the organizers, obviously, as we about what it is that I have to say. And we've been talking about this idea of creativity in a crisis, or how to create, I suppose, in a crisis. So I was thinking very much about what the very worst thing you could face as a creative is. And this is my version of that. It's sort of just a blank page where anything is possible, where you can do anything. We very rarely find ourselves with a truly blank page. If we had a blank page, I'm looking for one. If we had a blank page, it would have edges. And it has a plane, so we're going to need a pen, we're going to need a tool in order to play or to make something, to create with our blank page. When you have the internet, for many of us now, we think only of the tools that exist within the internet, things that have been made for us and how we use them. Likewise, if you are in the theatre, you have the stage, and the stage has an edge, and you have a period of time. When you are writing a book, you cannot write an endless book because the book has pages. The book is limited. So these things are bound by their form. Whatever it is, whether you're making a film, whether you're writing a book, whether you're making a pamphlet or a magazine, whatever you are creating is normally bound by its form. And then when we get to the internet, when we get to the real internet, we realize that a lot of those edges, they can disappear. And so for much of my life, I've been looking at a very blank page. And for me, often the limitations are that I'm not a very good coder. So I need to find people to help with that. And then beyond that, it's more the limitations of my imagination and sometimes the limitations of the technology. Like, as we were preparing this talk, I got this slightly alarming screen on my computers that said that I had no access to any of my documents, anything, like, because everything is in the cloud. So suddenly I couldn't reach the cloud. So this was a big problem. It lasted for about 4 days. And I thought once we got past that and I got on, and I thought, well, this is actually rather fun. It's like, this is exactly, because I had to rethink how I was going to do this presentation, what I would possibly do if there was no way of thinking about it. And I was saying it's a rather exciting challenge because it creates edges. You suddenly have some very distinct edges within which to work. And the main theme of this talk is about trying to express how valuable edges can be, how important it is to see what edges are real and what edges are not real, what edges can be walked straight over. Because we spend a lot of our time doing things the way that we're meant to do them. Because that's the way that we're meant to do. They're meant to be done, or we use the technology the way that someone has told us we must use the technology, and that's not always necessary. Then today, whilst I was finishing my presentation, my computer, I can show it to you. Actually, I won't show it to you because I'll pull all the wires out. It'll be a disaster. My screen went black, so I had to find a television and plug them in, and I think it was quite stressful for me, but I'm fairly sure that the organizers were far more stressed, so I would like to apologize to them for making their lives very difficult. But I'm really looking forward to where we are now, because I think it's actually been an opportunity to do a more interesting talk. The work that I do is really about another idea of creativity. It's about the idea. For many of us, when we design, we're designing around a solution or a product or a problem. We're given a very tight brief. Sometimes we have a color palette. There isn't that much space. And a lot of the work that I do has been about trying to find little spaces within which we can do fairly large things. Sometimes that's through words, through speaking or writing. Sometimes we make these little projects that show that the one of those is actually, I realize now, about 12 years old, and I still love it, because it was about what happens when we make the digital come to life in physical objects. It is something we still haven't quite successfully done. And when we think about how we design our technical objects, we still design them as computers. We design them to look like they are, I don't know. If you think about technology design, every now and again, someone like Apple or hopefully Google will come along and bring a product to life in a way that you realize it didn't have to look like that box, or it didn't have to look so plastic, or it didn't have to be black. Why they're all black? Everything is black. I have no idea why. One of the ways in which we describe creativity, or one of my favorite things when people ask what I do, and I say, well, there are a question of creativity, which is that you ask, well, what can you do? Here, I'll give you 60 seconds. In fact, I will give you 60 seconds. So here, everybody, you can have 60 seconds, 1 minute, to tell me what you can do with this. I'm not sure whether I have a timer. I'll carefully watch. And you can make a little list in your head. Maybe think of 3, 4, 5 things. Maybe think of 10 things. Maybe think of 20 things. Maybe think of 30 things. Maybe you've got one thing and you can't get past that one thing because that's the thing that you would use it for. You could use it for shelves, or you could use it to throw at someone. You could use it to break a lock or break a computer. As it is, within our industry, we should all be able to come up fairly quickly with a number of different things that we can do with it. I had a look on the internet, and actually, when you look for things you can do with a brick, all of them involve building, apart from one which had decided that it could be a flower pot. And I had to scroll down and down and down, and I thought, this is terrible in a way, because there's no real reason why what you should do with a brick should be a building, or should be the thing that the brick was made for. So my job is very, very similar. We get the phones, we get our technology, we have our fancy things, we have our wires, and, all of these sort of new code bases and APIs and browsers. And we're asked to try and inform people how they use them. And I'm much more interested in what people do with things that is not what we expected them to do, because this is a very good creative place. The arts and the creative industries as a whole are always about being at the edge of what can be done with the materials around us. We use our paints, our words, our computers to hold a mirror up to our society and show our society who they are. You can be a poet with your code just as much as with your pen. For example, with the phones, one of the things that I was very interested in was what would happen to that book that we had. So what is a book? Because if everything is on a phone, like, what happens to a book? Does a book stop being valuable? What is the valuable part of the book? Is it the words? Because if it's the words, we can put the words on the screen, right? That's what we do all day. We sit and look at screens and we read words and we look at pictures and we click things. Those are our main interaction elements. So we made some books that could only exist using a mobile phone. I think we have a video to show about it.
Editions at Play is an experiment into what books can become in a digital age. Some people say physical books have qualities that don't transfer well to digital. Editions at Play flips this idea on its head and asks, what if digital books had qualities that don't translate to print?
We created 4 books that cannot be printed and an online bookstore powered by Google Play. The books harness the dynamic properties of the web and are designed to be read on a mobile phone.
The first book is a novel set inside Street View by Rafe Larson. Entrances and exits weaves the writing together with the Street View interface, merging the aesthetics of digital and printed maps.
For the book Strata, we teamed up with Penguin Random House and Lex to create a collection of stories and related science essays. The stories complemented the rich world of illustration and music devised by comic book artist Tommy Lee Edwards and audiovisual collective I Speak Machine.
We explored how digital can challenge linear reading. In The Truth About Cats and Dogs, authors Joe Dunthorne and Sam Riviere invited readers to switch between their diaries and ultimately pick whose side they're on.
In Oldest Rotting by Alan Trotter, we looked at how the writing itself could be natively digital. Instead of words written to be printed, the text reacts to gestural interactions and deteriorates over time to mirror the character's progressive memory loss.
Editions at Play was really well received across the design and technology media, the publishing industry and the general public, and a host of new partners are already lined up to join our experiment.
With more books in the pipeline, Editions at Play is only beginning to scratch the surface of what literature can become in a digital age.
We want to inspire the next generation of readers, writers and publishers to create it.
So we did go on to make more books. This is the first sort of series of books that we made. It's funny how you think some will be more important at the time, and then you look back on others and you realize that a book about loss, about memory loss, a book that looks like a book, but which decays on you, is something that you can't do with printed matter, but you can do in that form. And you may say they're just websites, and actually you'd be completely right. They are all just websites, and you can still go to editionsatplay.com and find them. And you'll need your mobile phone, and hopefully they'll all still be working. But there's a very good chance that some of them will have broken by now, because this was 4 years ago. The next set of books that we did was a very long and spiraling narrative, much more like, I think maybe when we ask people, they think that a sort of idea of a choose your own adventure. It's like, where are you going to go next? Which bit of this book are you going to read? Suddenly the book becomes it becomes wherever you want it to go. I was about to say it can go left, it can go right, it can go up, it can go down. It can go in any dimension. You can have many dimensions of pages. And this is a very difficult thing for us to think about, and it's not difficult because it's difficult because we don't and haven't thought about it. Instead of which, we tend to turn our technology back into things which remind us of physical things. This is not because those designs are the best designs. It is because that is what we are used to. It is what makes us comfortable. And comfort is not a strong place to be. The one next to it is very complicated. It's a complicated book. It's a very simple story, but and it's got 25 pages, and each page has exactly 256 words. And we used it using blockchain to create a model of a world where you could have 100 copies of a book. So there were 100 copies of a book, and you go to that one and you pick a book, one of the 100 that exist. Because everyone that's given one of those copies has to change it. They have to remove words or add words. And then once they've done that, then they can give it to someone else. But only one person can ever hold the book at a time. And this to me was very important. I was very interested in whether the idea of a kind of lineage, provenance, was significant to the value of a non-tangible artifact. We have many, many non-tangible artifacts. If you have shares in a company, it is very unlikely you will have held them. If you have debts, it is very unlikely you will have held them. We have lots of things that can't possibly be picked up or put down. We have conceptual art. And yet, in order to sell the art, very often the artist is made to sign pieces of paper so that people have something that they can pick up. This doesn't make any sense because it means that much of the work that we do in digital, which again is code, it can't be picked up, it can't be put down, it can be reached by anyone. How do we make those things valuable? Because they are just as valuable. So that was about value systems. The next, this is Seed, which is this beautiful book that moves in and out of this 18-year-old's diary. We made a ghost book called Breathe, which used the camera and used where you were, used all of the things. So it's a very creepy ghost book, but it was also a very creepy ghost book in that it was slightly worrying. And we made another book which the first 256 people to read it got a printed copy. Because, of course they did. because it was this thing that you can actually have an incredibly personalized book. So you can have a unique book, and everyone reads a book in a unique way, whether that is how fast they read it, whether it is which pages they choose to go. This particular book is written through 8 strands. So you have a multi-perspective view on the same narrative, and you can move in and out of these things. It's actually really hard to explain, and I hope it's slightly easier to understand as a book, as a digital book. And this is why we do these projects, because you suddenly realize there are things which are really hard to explain. And it's fine before you've done it, because everyone thinks that you're just a bit crazy. And then afterwards, when you're still trying to explain something, you realize that these are interesting ideas. An interesting idea is an idea which can be viscerally in front of you, and can challenge you and make you think about what it is that you are looking at. And the slide on the end is the picture on the end. We were very lucky. We got a Peabody, which is an American prize for digital mobile design, and for which I'm very surprised that my projects don't tend to win things or awards. But they are very often that idea of like, so what would we do with this? What will we make with, when we launched a browser, I hope some of you may remember, before Chrome, there were other browsers, and there still are other browsers, but we thought our browser was really good, but it was very hard to tell the world that you could have another browser because this was not something they were used to. It was slightly like telling people they could have a new hand. So we were very interested in that problem. It was a kind of traditional marketing problem in many ways, but we solved it with the usual strange solutions. Like we created a project called Chrome Experiments, which allowed everyone in the world who used code to demonstrate how much better that code performed on a Chrome browser. So it's really about the time that HTML5 was emerging, and that Flash was kind of, well, we're still deprecating Flash, so still hasn't quite gone away, but the sort of decline of Flash, if any of you worked with that, and the rise of HTML5, and this was a spot where developers from all over the world could suddenly see what different people were doing, and it became a real thing. And a few years ago we had, I think our, yes, our 1000th experiment. Again, and it's spawned all these offshoots as well. So we have all sorts of different experiments. The whole notion of experiment became a kind of useful piece of jargon. It's not a real experiment. I want to talk about science in a little bit, but it is very useful. So we can have AI experiments or Android experiments. We can have so many of these things. As long as we couch them in this way. So the work that I do is very much, is again the same. This is the Chrome Music Lab. So we have our creative lab where we do experiments, and they're not particularly scientific, but they come with the same ethos that we are allowed to play and explore. It's an amazing thing, and I think, especially as a second language, looking at how the English words have been transferred from one meaning in English into a similar but not the same word in computer. So you do have folders and pages and files. They are not folders or pages or files. Like, they are not sorry. And likewise, we are not in a lab. We are not running sort of carefully controlled experiments. We are running rather uncontrolled experiments. Chrome Music Lab, by the way, if you haven't been to see it, is wonderful. And if you have children, you should definitely go and check it out, because it's just something which reminds you how joyful the internet can be. And I think we could do with more of that. This is a data center. This is where all of the internet lives. And again, it is I have a small dog running around my feet. I'm just going to shoot it off tightly. Bye. Otherwise I'd end up picking him up. That wouldn't do at all. So what would you do with a data center? I mean, what would you do with a data center? What would you do with AI if you could have it? What would you do with artificial intelligence, or as we prefer it, machine learning, because there's not really an artificial intelligence involved. There's just machines that can learn in ways that previously code couldn't. Well, we did a project for writers, actually. I think we did another project for musicians recently, and we looked at how those groups, the people that are making things, can, rather than this fear that everything will take over, I think we need to understand that just like every other tool, the tools are just things that we use. Things that maybe used to feel, oops. Gosh, sorry. We've lost our camera.
Are you okay there, T?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to find the camera settings.
Problem. We're still there. We're still here.
Yes, good. Hello, everyone. Well, you're now looking at the side of my computer.
Talk to us now.
I'm just feeling really grateful that there's a bunch of flowers there as well. So.
Oh, I can see the presentation, T, but I cannot see you or the back of your computer.
Oh, really?
We'll be live in 10 seconds. I think we don't see you, T. We don't see you. We see your presentation and we see your screen. You're back.
Sorry, everybody.
No problem. We're still here. Go ahead.
Yes, I rather like it when things break. I mean, not that I broke it intentionally, but my point is that things break. You know they break. They all break. Like my computers broke, and then the cloud broke. And I just pulled the wrong cable out, and now I'm very worried that it's not going to have any power. It's the world that we live in. And actually, in this time, we have this wonderful opportunity because people don't really expect everything to work as well as it should do. Look, that's what the culprit was. I'll plug it back together. And we'll go on with our talk. And we can pretend, if you like, that I am not sitting in my living room, or that I'm somehow got extra special tech skills. I wish I could show you, or I'm not going to show you my desk because it's such a mess. When we use technology, we don't have to use it perfectly. If you look at any tool around you, whether it's pens or pencils or your headphones or even medicine. My girlfriend is ill at the moment, and we were talking about a medicine she should use, and it's a hack. The best things are that we use the tools that we're given, and we explore, we play with them, we push them to the edges. So this is again one of those projects you can go online and have a look at it, which has its code base and is a way of exploring what's possible. And I also think that if you were there going, well, this is fine because you have machine learning, you have a data center, you have like a cloud. This was another project that we did, which was about AI, which was about the fact that AI is flawed. It's quite broken. It doesn't work as well as it should do. It's about how we bring inclusion back into data sets. And if you're interested in machine learning, it's a very good thing to do to really understand the limitations of this amazing technology, to understand how broken is not the right word. None of us are broken, but none of us are perfect. Like, none of this is perfect. It's all just what we are working with. It all has its edges, and we can use those edges to make interesting things. So for the last 10 years or so, I've been doing exactly that. We've been doing all sorts of projects, and we're going to play another video about that. video. That last little bit is the important bit of the video, I think. That last little bit is the people who do the work with us, who make it happen, who are brave enough to take a risk, because you can't do anything without a partner. You can't do anything without other people. I have not been able to do. I think I designed some badges that I was quite pleased with once. There are very few things that one should really be trying to do on one's own. Because again, you're just within your world, your reality. How are you going to understand or try and give some light, some vision of other people's realities? It's very unlikely that you are a project manager and a highly skilled developer and a creative genius and a strategist and a copywriter. And if you are, then you must get in touch with me and I will hire you. And I probably actually won't hire you. I will probably say that you're not. But it's perfectly wonderful to be excited by all those things. I am very excited by neuroscience at the moment. I am not a neuroscientist. I'm also, but I think that it's wonderful to do so. I'm trying to teach my children maths because they have to study at home, and I'm realizing how terrible my maths is, whereas I thought it was so good. We should always be learning all through our lives that we don't know things. That's the best part of being alive, is learning how little you learn. No, we do that by exploring. I do it by very often challenging my team with my version of a project. So I really am not very good at any of the bits that you're meant to be good at. Like, I normally do a thing which looks a bit like this. This is a whiteboard from a project, and I will talk everyone through it, which I won't do to you now. And then I'll say, is everyone clear? Good. Excellent. Actually, at that point, what we do, which is interesting, is we normally try and get everyone to write down what they think I or whoever is running this thing is talking about. What does everyone in the room actually give them a voice and a chance to write in their language, so the project managers can write it out in a sort of like very organized way, and the copywriters can write some florid prose, and the developers can write a kind of structured thing about the technical necessities of this, that, and the other. Everyone will write in their language, but ideally it will all be at least in the same direction. It's a way of allowing people to communicate. And that's actually been one of the great difficulties, I think, of allowing technology to be more than just technology, which it really has yet to do. It is yet to integrate itself into our lives because it's very hard to communicate. These are not, like, I think I was even introduced as being special because I am interested in computers and in art. And these are disparate worlds, and they are disparate worlds. I have many disparate worlds. They just happen to have collided at the same time. I have many bits, many parts. Likewise, one of those wonderful things that people do when they get important is they stop doing the thing and they start telling people what to do. Even though the people coming through probably know better than them what it is that they're doing, because that's what they do for a job. And I do think that gardening would be better. We should have chief creative gardeners who are really going around tending the beautiful flowers and the beautiful plants that they have assembled, feeding them and watering them and talking to them and letting them grow and bloom and blossom, and understanding when they need to be moved. Some tenderness to how we create would be a very interesting way of creating. I said a little bit earlier about science, and one of the things that you should always remember about science is there's two methods, the scientific method and trial and error. A scientific method is different than trial and error because it has an idea. It has a hypothesis. So trial and error is like, so you try it, if it doesn't work, you try something else. Scientific theory would say, we think it is doing this because of that, therefore we're going to try doing this and that, and we're going to see what happens, and we're going to collect information until we have enough to justify our hypothesis. And because you can never get enough evidence, scientists are fully aware that there isn't really truth. and that their facts are really very much waiting to be disproven. It's why they're so uncomfortable about saying things are absolutely true or not. It is, whether it's neuroscience, whether it's nuclear physics, whether it's like quantum physics, been an amazing era for science across the latter half of the 20th century and up to today. You know, the genome, the chemists winning, not the chemists, for their genome research is that like this is worth reading because it will inform you. These are edges and spaces that you don't think may have much to do with you, but they really do. Science is about curiosity and coffee, and my work is about curiosity and coffee more than anything else. It's curiosity and coffee that led to a meeting with the Royal Shakespeare Company. It's curiosity and coffee that led to a project with the Griffin about the future of theatre, which we had a video, but we don't need to play that because it's one where everything goes wrong. So we won't play that one because I've already demonstrated how everything goes wrong. This turned into a project which we did at a fringe theatre where the audience was 2 people and it was like they tuned in. It was also fascinating projects and led, not because they were terribly successful, but because they were fascinating and we learned so much, to other things like this project called Belongings, which was just about how you can begin to use your phone as a magic wand rather than as a phone. How do we get people to stop looking at the thing which isn't the thing that we want them to do? And you sort of wonder why everyone doesn't do that. And then you look at the job descriptions and the OKRs. And you look at people being inspirational and they say forge your own path and discover your true self and push on every door. And these things are quite correct. But often what those things are is not the same. You don't get to forge a path. No one says, do you want to forge your path over here? Or do you want to forge your path over there? I got fired from the job that I was in just before I joined Google. I worked out that I was not only broke, I was kind of broken and I'd had enough. And I had very low self-esteem. I didn't think I was capable of doing anything. And that's why I agreed to take a 3 days a week temp job at Google. This is back in 2006. Doing PowerPoint slides, doing sales slides for them. One of the first things we did actually, well, not the first things, but we did that little chap. And I was looking the other day and going, it really hasn't changed very much. So I know that like the crisis that we are talking about is the COVID crisis, but I think that actually we all live through crises all the time, every day. Our lives are crises. If you're in America at the moment, you start talking about the crises, you get like a menu of options to choose from about which one is the big crisis or whether it's a mega crisis. Personally, I've had crises of my own. That's me. Oh, and that's also me. So I had a crisis where I realized very late in my life, well, I realized very early in my life, and then I hid that fact for many years, that I was trans. And so I had to transition. And this was a very difficult thing. And when I present it like this, and I do quite often present it like this, I think, well, that looks like a Hollywood version. It looks like I went in looking like that, and I wish I'd look like that every day. I mean, it's quite cute. And then it'd come out looking like me. And that's not what happened. I mean, not what happened at all. And then, so I've got this lovely, these are my security cards from when I joined Google. And that tells a different story, right? But it's still only a 6-image story. It's not got any of the depths. There is an infinitely deep version of that story that you can tell. And there is probably a point at which it becomes pointless to tell any more detail. But whenever we put things up, we must remember that we're not, we're just telling a story. We're just doing a version. We're performing. Everything we do is performance. Everything you do is performance. Without your audience, of whoever they are, even if it's just a little camera, you would be behaving completely differently. One of the ways we know that is because we take our values, we have our values, and yet when they clash with the key performance indicators, it's normally the key performance indicators that work, even though those are not human values, they are financial values. So how do we work with values? I have a great belief in values and value systems and value structures. I have a great belief in what we're doing. And I think that the internet provides people around the world with the opportunities to do things, starting in very small ways. It's about autistic people, about understanding that your objectives from your company do not need to be the goal of your project, that you can fit these things in together. There are projects, and it would be lovely to talk about these more, where you see things like the fact that there wasn't a trans emoji. I spent 4 years trying to get a transgender emoji. But when you see it on your phone in the next few weeks, that one's from me. And it's not Google, not a big thing. It's little people pushing in their own little way and discovering that they don't know what they're doing at all. It is a big and wonderful world out there. And you have every opportunity to change it. So you don't have to have a creative process. You have to process, think, and you have to create. And I hope you have a lovely day. Good luck, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tia, for that inspiring presentation, full of edges in a way. You start talking about edges. Edges in, you said in a blank page, edges in technology, even edges in imagination. Who could have said? Mm-hmm. There's questions for you very quickly, Tia, because sorry, you've taken a lot of time, but I didn't want to let you go without posing some questions. You're probably familiar with Adam Grant's idea of procrastination and how important it is to not rush creative projects. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm. I think there's a very difficult thing that we face at the moment, which is that in every company, everywhere, people want to measure your work by hours. I was saying that time is a very abstract notion when you're being creative, because like for Picasso, forever people have said this, and we know that it is not relevant, but they need to measure you against something. And then someone said, oh, well, then money is abstract. It's like, no, money is the thing that we use to measure the time. How much are we going to pay for this time? Whereas this is a very strange thing to do. So yeah, like the idea that people are not working when they are lying still is completely, it's like they're not, yes. Everyone should really allow themselves to do the work, however the work has to happen. This talk was very close to being done with blank pieces of paper, and it would have been maybe more interesting if I'd been forced to do that. But it made me think.
Well, for the next one then, T, for the next one,
yes.
please.
Next one, okay.
In relation to that first question, they ask you, what about the relationship between stress and creativity? How can we be creative with a deadline looming?
Oh, I know, that's a very difficult question. I think one should generally focus on ignoring the deadline. Well, no, don't ignore the deadline. One should always deliver to a deadline. That's a very important thing one should do. But one can also deliver the thing that's beyond the deadline, the thing that they weren't expecting, the bit that you wanted to do. And you can always find time to do that. And you'd be surprised how many deadlines are not deadlines. So take your time to hit your deadline by all means. And hit it with your C+, I don't know. And then honor your work. Honor your work. Don't compromise your work. So you give them the very best thing you can do. And if you continue to give them the best thing you can do later and later and later, they will go, oh, yes, they'll do the best work. It's just going to be later, because that's how they work. But if you never allow yourself to do that work, then
I see.
They will never know.
Yeah, well, sometimes deadlines are good it happens to me when I have a deadline. Suddenly, my creativity seems to come rushing in. I don't know if it's that.
I think that you'll find that your brain knows there's a deadline for a very long time, and it's been doing the work for you, and then you don't need to bother to bring it together until that last minute. That's
Probably
much more
that's it.
how I like to think. That procrastination. Yes, we are all doing the work.
Thank you so much. I've always thought I was a procrastinator, so thank you so much, T. There's another question in that sense, and very quickly, I know we're running out of time. They say, thank you for your thoughts, T. Very interesting speech. Do you think that chaos can be a good environment for developing new ideas or new business models?
Chaos, no. Chaos is disruptive, and people do not work well in it. There needs to be you need security. You need to have things that you don't want to worry about. You actually need the parameters within which chaos can exist need to be relatively narrow. But yes, once you have defined the parameters, the size of your page, then yes, let chaos reign, and more let play reign, let playful chaos reign.
Okay.
But yes, I think it's very important that people don't think that you just wildly go off. It's not like that. It's just as caring and nurturing as a garden. It's not a will.
Yeah. It's a controlled chaos. It's a program-defined chaos in a way. Yeah. Another couple, at least. T, I know very quickly. How is affecting teamwork? This pandemic? Are the new synergies arising? How can we exploit them? I don't know if you can say.
I think that's a really interesting question, and I think you should probably have a speaker devoted entirely to that. I could have done a different talk, actually, because I think that there are a lot of things, and we've experienced them right here, where we are not making our technology, we're still not making our technology easy, human. Humans are still being expected to be technological in order to do the things. And also a lot to do with sound, a lot to do with audio and how we communicate, and what our ears are doing. So I think that the really interesting thing over the next few years will be, ear scanning, actually, as we begin to place sounds in the way that sounds are placed for us. We understand our world. I tell my boys a lot when they're cycling that they mustn't talk because their ears are working twice as hard because their ears are looking behind them as well as in front of them. True.
Good. Never thought of that. Actually, T,
but we
there's
don't
more
do
questions.
it on a meeting.
I know we run out of time. They were asking you about your further, if you look back on old projects and if you think differently, but you've shown us examples of things you've done in the past and you still think they're okay.
I am going back through right at the moment and writing a kind of a review slowly, just going through and going, what were we thinking? What were we thinking?
Yeah.
What was this meant to do? I think it's a really good thing to do. As long as you can be critical about your work and not go, this is brilliant. They were idiots.
Well, we've been looking forward also to your future work, especially that transgender emoji. We'll think about you.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, now we know it's you behind it. And T, I'm just gonna leave you with two words that you said and that I take for the audience as well, which is always learning. So we learned a lot with you. Thank you so much, T. Uglow from Google in the Google Labs in Sydney. It was a pleasure having you. Please stay with us if you can. Otherwise, we hope to see you very soon and maybe in Inspirational 2021. Until then, all our love to Sydney, to Google. Thank you, T.